Hey guys, welcome back. So today we have 3 different AKs out here, and they represent what's currently available in the import market. AKs that are manufactured overseas and imported into the United States. In the United States, we have several companies spinning up to produce AKs domestically. Probably the best company out there right now doing that, in my experience, with multiple rifles of theirs, is Palmetto State Armory, or PSA. But this is about the imports. What do we currently have? We have sanctions against Russia, so the VEPRs and the SEGAs are long since gone. We won't see those probably ever again. So this is what we have left. Real quickly, we have the WASR 10. This one's an underfolder. We have the Arsenal 107R. These just recently showed up again here in the United States after a long absence. And then we have the newly introduced ZPAP, which is the current iteration of the Serbian-made rifle that is being brought in by Zastava USA. So let's do a quick breakdown of all 3 of these different rifles, talk about what I like and dislike about each, and then I'll pick a favorite by the end of the video. Let's get started. We would like to thank our friends at Big Daddy Unlimited for helping to make this and other videos possible. If you'd like to help us out, swing by the BDU website, and just for 99 cents, you can try out their service for 1 month. And they're basically like the Sam's Club of the online world. So check them out. If you would like to stay a member, go by militaryarms.org. There's a big link right at the top of the website, and you can stay a member for 20% off every month going forward. So please check them out. Let's take a look at each of the rifles, but let's start off with the least expensive and work our way up to the most expensive. Now, the WASR 10 is the least expensive rifle, but it really does compete with the Zastava, the ZPAP that we have out here today, in terms of pricing. The Atlantic Sporting Outlet has the ZPAPs listed for $7.99, and Atlantic Firearms has them listed for $8.99. So there's a $100 difference there between the 2 sites. I think they're owned by the same company. But anyway, so that puts the cost of the Zastava right in line with the cost of the WASR, which is around $7.94 full retail, according to the Century Arms website, for a standard fixed stock rifle. What are you getting with the WASR 10? Well, back in the day, the rifles were really affordable. They're like $3.99, and the 1063s were commonly available, and the 1063s were basically, they used a lot of military parts in them, and they were really good rifles. They had military laminate furniture on them. They seemed to be of good quality, but typical Romanian quality, which isn't necessarily the highest quality out there. But where it was important, the guns always delivered. And that's true, at least with this rifle, all the way up until today. Now, I think, and in my opinion, the quality of the WASR 10 has slipped over the years. The current crop of rifles that we get are nothing like the 1063s. But these are still fully serviceable rifles. You get a chrome line hammer forged barrel. You get this blonde furniture now, which I prefer the old military laminate, but Century now sells them with this blonde furniture. On the Century Arms website, they show a full stock rifle with a laminate military stock and the blonde furniture forend. I thought that was a little bit weird, but I've seen the rifles on the showroom floors, and you typically get that blonde furniture. You get a Parkerized finish. All 3 finishes out here are different on each of the guns this afternoon. Generally, you're going to get a fairly straight receiver. The rivets on all the the WASRs that I have, the rivets look really nicely done. They have a nice dome to them. It doesn't look like the tool came in at an angle and they didn't overpress it and crushing the receiver like I've seen done on some poorly made AK examples. So when it comes down to it, the guns typically shoot. Now, you may get one that you can't zero because that front sight is so off. And all 3 rifles out here today have that front sight pegged either all the way to the right or all the way to the left, and that's just kind of what you get used to if you buy and use AKs and iron sights. But the gun is completely serviceable, so you're going to, if it can be zeroed, it's going to be reliable mostly, and it's going to shoot fairly well. Where I run into gripes with Century Arms on their WASR 10s is they do the magazine cutout back here. It comes in as a single stack. They'll hog it out to accept double stack, regular AK mags, and you can see that the metal's still in the white. It's unfinished, and this one has magazine fitment issues, which isn't unheard of. Some of them will have very tight magazine wells. That's what this gun has, and some will have very loose magazine wells. Anytime Century Arms, in my opinion, has to use a tool on a gun, you're going to get iffy results. With that being said, this gun does have a Century Arms trigger in it, and this trigger is actually a really nice trigger. I think they call it the rack or something like that. It has a big C on the side of the trigger. Tapco's no longer in business. Century is making their own U.S. compliance parts, at least in the trigger. And the trigger on this thing is actually pretty nice. So you have that park finish that comes right out of the box with the, complimentary scratches for you already. The fitment is just okay. Things like on this underfolder, the stock will go right past its locking stop and just flip right around. And that's just kind of par for the course with the current crop of WASR 10s coming in. And this thing, if you slowly wiggle it near its locking stop, it'll eventually catch and lock into place. But again, that's just kind of a testament to the current state of the WASR 10. It's just okay. It'll deliver the goods. It'll fire. Generally, if they'll shoot and can be zeroed, they'll be reliable. But that's just it. And at the price point that they're asking for these things, to me, it's just not worth it anymore. Back when they were $400, $500, yeah. I mean, look at this. The fitment on the gun is just okay at best. But, you know, it'll fire. This one's worked. It's never malfunctioned. And it just seems to run and run and run. And I got it zeroed. So my only complaint is I don't think it's money well spent given the other options on the market. This, and I know this is going to upset a lot of people, but this is the last import AK I would look at if I'm looking at import AKs. If I'm just filling out a military collection, sure, pick up a Romanian-made AK like this for your collection. But if you're looking for something that you're going to have some pride and ownership in and isn't going to cost much more than this, I would look someplace else. This is some Federal 7.62x39, and Federal does support the channel with free ammunition. We'd like to thank them for doing that. This is a Yugo mag, and so it's going to lock open the last shot fired. Now, one thing I didn't point out a little while ago is that the underfolder doesn't have an optics rail or an accessory rail on the left-hand side of the receiver, but on the fixed stock versions of the guns, you will find that they have that accessory rail, and it's compatible with Russian-style optics, and that's something I actually like as a feature. All right, go ahead and charge your rifle up. Let's beat up on Mr. Challenge Target at 100 yards. All right, so this magazine fits just a little bit tight, that Yugo does. Yeah, I mean, again, serviceable, shoots to point of aim, basic AK, not my favorite. So next in our price line would be the Zastava. I've seen these, the ZPAPs, advertised from $7.99 to $8.99, with the $8.99 being the most common price. And I've also seen these things go for as much as $1,200 or more at auction on places like Gunbroker. But if you go MSRP to MSRP, this rifle is roughly the same cost as a WASR 10 and about $100 more. But in my opinion, you're getting a lot more rifle for that $100. So where the WASR is priced at, I'm not interested in the gun. In my mind, it's still a $400 or $500 gun. When you pick up the WASR, it feels cheaply made. When you pick this gun up, it feels substantial. It feels really solidly built. And when you take a look at the fit and finish compared to the WASR has that parked finish, which can look crude, but it's a military finish. This one has a nice, even blued finish on all the metal parts, not including the bolt carrier there, or bolt. So the wood, the bluing, everything, the fitment on this rifle is just really, really nice. This is what I would expect from a quality AK. Now, if you watch the first video I did with this rifle, I compared it to an older Yugoslavian import AK from the 80s, and it had a lot of similarities to that rifle, but there's some serious departures. Now let's get into Zastava USA and that whole thing. So originally Century Arms was bringing in the Serbian rifles. The rifles that they were bringing in look nothing like the rifle that you're looking at right now. They had 1 mil thick receivers on them, and you know, some people had problems with them, whatever, but they just seemed cheaply made by this rifle's standards. And so I don't know if there's a falling out between Zastava and Century, but ultimately Zastava set up their own US operations. And when they did that, they were really listening to the US consumer, because they immediately started making changes to the guns that they were bringing in to where we are today with this ZPAP. We got the 1.5 mil thick receiver back. We have the bulged trunnion. We have the nice blue finish, which they've always had. And now we have a cold hammer forged chrome lined barrel. So the original Yugoslavian M70 didn't have a chrome lined bore. The American market didn't care about that. They just want chrome. So Zastava USA said, fine, we'll give you chrome. This ZPAP has that chrome lining. So that's what I really like about Zastava USA. Now the price has gone up, but the quality has come up in my opinion. And they're listening to the US market, giving the consumer what they want. Now I did ding this rifle for the riveting in the original video. There's a couple of rivets on here where the tool is pressed sideways, but the rivets are all properly done. There's no light around them and they're gonna hold. Overall, the quality, fit, and finish is just substantially, noticeably better than the WASR 10. It's certainly worth $100 difference in terms of MSRP. The downside to the Serbian rifle, now the WASR, if you get the non-underfolder with a fixed stock, you will have the option of an optics rail or accessory rail on the left-hand side. This one also has its own accessory rail. However, this one's proprietary. So that's going to be one of those things that you're going to have to decide for yourself. If you buy this rifle and you think you're going to go out and buy a Russian optic and slap it on there, it's not going to fit most likely. So you're going to have to buy, like in Midwest Industries or an RS Regulate Yugo rail, and then put an American or Chinese made red dot sight or something on there, because this is not compatible generally with Russian mounts. So that's one of those things that you should be aware of if you're taking a look at this. Also, the stock on this, you'll notice that there's no tang coming out back here. The stocks are also proprietary. Now this stock is nice because it has a more AKM style profile to it. It's narrower and has the cheek comb a little bit lower. And that is another place where Zastava USA was listening to the consumer, because the original Yugo stocks are thicker, chunkier, higher cheek comb, and would whack you in the cheekbone when you fired the gun, at least for some folks. I don't have a problem with it, but it just, everybody's a little bit different. A lot of people had complaints about the ergonomics, that rifle stock whacking them in the cheekbone. So you have proprietary stocks back here, and then up here you'll notice we have 3 vent holes, and the handguards are slightly longer. Again, this is unique to the ZPAP. So if you're going to go out and look for polymer furniture and stuff like that, you're going to have to find furniture that will fit this rifle. So proprietary rail and furniture. But aside from that, this thing is just exquisitely built. You do have to, I always forget about that little lock. But you know, if you take a look at the insides, the parts are nicely fit. Everything is nice and smooth. It's just a nicely made gun. Now the original pistol grip that I had on the gun that it shipped with, notice I could actually just put the bolt carrier right in there. I didn't have to struggle with it to get it in or out, unlike the WASR. I went ahead and put a Yugo military grip on here. The rifle would normally ship with a wooden grip that has the same color to it as the stocks. Linseed oil will help you keep the stocks properly maintained, so you can pick some of that linseed oil up and just rub it into your stocks every 6 months or so. At least that's what Zastava USA recommends based on a YouTube video I watched of theirs. But overall, the fit, finish, quality of the gun is just superb. It's a little bit heavier because of its thicker receiver and the bulged trunnion, but I don't mind that. It really helps to mitigate the recoil of the 7.62x39 cartridge. So this is a Yugo mag as well. I really like the Yugo mags because they have that bolt stop in there that locks the bolt open on the last shot fired. I think on this one, we're going to be shooting some Bar Null ammunition. And this is kind of my favorite Russian manufactured ammo. And again, we're going to be shooting at about 100 yards with our challenge target down there. What a great shooting gun. I really, really like the Zastava. It's going to come from the factory with this bolt hold open that I could do without. I'd prefer to have a traditional military style safety lever, but you have that option. If you're on a range, a lot of ranges mandate that you have the bolt locked open to show clear. So that's kind of a nice function if you shoot on a public range that has that type of a requirement. But anyway, yeah, beautifully made, worth every cent. Yeah, some of you are going to complain about the price, but based on the cost of import rifles right now, I think this is a fair value and certainly warrants the cost as compared to the other rifles, given that it's less than $1,000 if you don't pay panic buying prices. Next up is the Arsenal. This is the 107R, R standing for rail. This one has the accessory rail on the left-hand side of the receiver, and that allows you to use optics like this Russian prism sight. It just slides right on that optics rail. Flip the lever over, locks it in place, and now you have an optic on the gun. So this rifle and the WASR 10 will have that standard mounting feature, so you can use these types of optics, which is nice. You can get into collecting the Russian optics as a hobby all in and of itself. So let's talk about the Arsenal. The Arsenal is a standard AKM, so it has a 1 mil thick receiver on it. It is built in a military factory in Bulgaria, and this one is obviously built for export, but that factory also builds rifles for their own military. The rifle has had complaints against it in the past. It's a painted on finish, so we had the ZPAP with the blued finish, we had the park finish on the WASR. This one has a painted finish, which when you get it really hot, if you run like 6 magazines through it, you can see the paint bubble. At least we've seen that in the past. I haven't gotten this rifle that hot, and I really don't want to cause my finish to bubble. But you can't really focus on that alone when you're taking a look at a Bulgarian-made AK. Now, even though my front sight is drifted all the way to the left to get it to 0, the gun is in spec, it's a beautifully made rifle. The Bulgarians do a great job pressing their rivets. I've never seen one of their rifles with poorly done rivets, and I'm sure there's going to be somebody in the comment section that's going to say, oh, but mine has really bad rivets, I had a problem. Yeah, anybody can have a problem in manufacturing, I understand that. But in general, these rifles have a reputation for being good quality rifles, and that's why they get away charging the prices that they do. And that has been pretty much, historically speaking, Arsenal rifles have been more expensive than the average AK on the market. They also come and go. So we'll have Arsenal AKs, and then all of a sudden they'll sell out very quickly, and then we'll have months before we see them on the market again. So they come and go, and when they come and become available, people run out and buy them because they're a very popular AK. And with good reason. They're well-built AKs in my experience. Now, they also offer a milled receiver rifle, which I believe is an extremely beautifully made rifle. I have a milled gun that I've done a video on here recently. It's just nicely made, uses standard AKM furniture, so you have the tang back here. So unlike the ZPAP, this has in common with the WASR 10 the ability to change out the furniture on it with standard AKM furniture. So that's true on the stock, that's true on the handguards. This one would come with a muzzle nut on it. I have a fighter brake from Definitive Arms on there. But other than that, this rifle's a factory Bulgarian 107R. All right, so let's talk about the internals really quick. The fitment on these things is really nice. I've taken the other guns apart, so let me show you. The parts come and fit these rifles perfectly. They come out and go in very easily. I've never had a problem with Arsenal AKs being problematic. Some folks have had guns they couldn't zero, things like that, but you're going to run into that with AKs in general. And that's another thing that Jason and I were talking about today, which I think is kind of funny. The US market doesn't really know how to view AKs just in general. People call them junk because they compare them to, you know, a nicely made AR, say an FN made AR or a Daniels Defense AR. They'll take a look at an AK and lay them side by side and go, oh, the AK's junk. It just looks cheap. It feels cheap. It's junk. And then you'll get the guys that'll buy rifles, and we've had this happen at Copper where you ship the rifle to them and they'll insist the gun's been used because there's a scratch on the receiver from the operation of the safety lever. Just test firing the gun is going to put that little scratch on it. It's so bad that some AK manufacturers domestically are shipping the guns with a piece of plastic underneath there, so when you move the lever it doesn't scratch the finish. And that's only happening because they've had so many customer service calls of people saying, you sent me a gun with a scratch in the receiver. Well, if you ever do that, you're going to scratch your receiver. So the American market is really, really fickle when it comes to firearms, and they just love to tear the AKs apart on quality. But what you have to look at these rifles holistically and consider how they stack up as military service rifles. And in that regard, the Arsenal and the ZPAP are well-made military standard type rifles. All right, let's do a little bit of shooting with this bad boy. Have some of the Bernal ammunition again. And the action on this thing is nice and smooth. And we'll beat up on Mr. Challenge Target there. Oops. Missed one there, but I reached up and got my hand burned by the hand guard and missed a shot. But anyway, these Yugo mags are really cool because they lock the bolts right here. Now, of the 3 rifles out here, I really do like the trigger on the WASR 10. That Century trigger is nice. It's nice and smooth. The ZPAP has a nice and smooth trigger on it. This arsenal and other arsenals I have is a bit more gritty. You can stone that trigger a little bit if you want to, but this one almost feels like a 2-stage trigger. It'll pull to right there. It's gritty, it's kind of stagey, and then it stops, you hit a shelf, and then it breaks. So the arsenal triggers, in my experience, are generally a little bit more gritty, but they can clean up either with a lot of use by shooting them a lot, or you can polish up that trigger if you want, but be careful when you're working on triggers, and don't take too much material off. So, which one, if I could only pick one, would it be? Give me a minute to think about it. So, of the 3, if I could only pick one, which would it be? Well, the cop-out answer would be these 2, the Arsenal and the ZPAP. But I know you guys would have at me in the comments section, and rightly so, because that is a cop-out. I really like both of these rifles. And until this rifle came onto the market, the Arsenal's a no-brainer for me in terms of what's available from imported AKs. So the ZPAP kind of changed the game for me because I remember the old OPAPs and stuff like that, and I never was all that impressed with them. And I don't even own one. But when this rifle came out with the chrome-lined barrel and the bulged trunnion, that's when my interest was really piqued. And so comparing this rifle to this rifle, look, this gun has its weaknesses, and mostly in that it doesn't have compatibility with AKM accessories. You have to use a proprietary mount for optics. The stocks aren't compatible. And for somebody that wants to modify a gun, that's going to be an issue. But for me, I like to keep them mostly the same way. Obviously, I've changed the grip on this one. With this rifle, the only thing I can really ding it for is the finish. Some folks have had problems with arsenals. Jason's had more than his fair share of problems with arsenals. He's disavowed them, but I've had good luck with them. So if I could only pick one, it's going to be this one. It's going to be the ZPAP. And I say that reluctantly because I have a long love affair with Arsenal AKs. But this rifle really changed things for me. Yes, it's heavier. Yes, it uses proprietary furniture and optics mounts, but for me, that isn't an issue. This is a beautifully built AK that not only looks good, but shoots good. So that's the one I would pick, and it's not even the most expensive. I look forward to reading your comments down below and which of the 3 AKs we talked about this afternoon you would pick. Please go ahead and like and share this video because that really does help us out, and comment down below because that also helps us out. Guys, if you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel, the best way to do that is to become a Patreon supporter. We are not financed by the manufacturers or importers. We're supported by you, our viewing audience, so we can be as honest as humanly possible, and we can only do that with your support. So there's a link down below. Consider clicking that link and becoming a Patreon supporter. There's another option, though, right here on YouTube. There's a little join button underneath the video player you're looking at right now. Click that join button and consider supporting us right here on YouTube. And last but not least, guys, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com. Thanks for 12 years of support, and we will talk to you guys soon.